The first step when replacing the rear brakes and rotors on your Audi B8 is to disengage the electronic parking brake. So I did this by using the Carista app, or Carista, however it is. These are the steps that I took. I did sign up for the 1-year trial and then canceled it about 5 days later. It worked very well. I have subsequently bought an actual reader for the Audi, but these are the steps. It's very straightforward. There's me signing up for a 12-month. When given the opportunity, you press open. It gives you a warning, and then it sounds something like this. That's it, it stopped. It even tells me that it succeeded. Just as a heads up, the close button will be used at the end once you've completed the task, not for now. Next, prepare and raise the vehicle. Pop off the lug nut covers, slightly loosen the lug nuts with the car on the ground, 17 millimeters, then raise the vehicle safely and jack it up. In this case, just the rear wheels, but I get to cheat because I have the quick jacks. Then completely remove the lug nuts and the subsequent tire. The next step is to remove the caliper and the bracket. The caliper is held on by two 13mm caliper guide bolts, and a 15mm wrench will prevent it from spinning, like such. So it sort of looks like this. The 15mm right there, and you just knock it loose and undo it, both the top and then the bottom. Once the top and bottom caliper bolts have been removed, you can go ahead and remove the entire caliper itself. It should slide off reasonably easily, and then you'll have access to the bolts holding on the brackets right there and right there. Removing these two 18mm bolts was the bane of my existence. I couldn't get the impact in, and I couldn't generate enough force, so I ultimately used PB Blaster, let them sit for about 15-ish minutes, and that worked like a charm. So there is the first bolt, and there's the second bolt. The top bolt is the longer of the two bolts. They're not the same length. And then you can remove the entire bracket. The next step is to remove and replace the rotor. Use a T30 to remove the set screw on the rotor. Then loosely insert a lug nut and knock the rotor free. I did use PB Blaster on kind of the seam. Again, this car is located in the Northeast US, so there's definitely some salt and grime and stuff like that. Then you hammer away, it breaks loose, undo the lug nut, take off the old rotor, go ahead and clean up the axle, make it look pretty, and then you can go ahead and install the new rotor, same way, put the set screw in, and the set screw is just hand tight. Next, you want to prepare and replace the bracket. Your brake kit may come with these little rubber tubes, and those tubes are installed on the bracket to keep dust and grime out of the guide pins, like that. So you just pop off the old tubes and kind of wiggle on the new ones. I did use a little bit of brake seal to make it go. These metal pins only fit one way. Unfortunately, my camera died here, so you just remove the old metal pins, clean up the bracket, and then reinstall the new metal pins. Remember, when you install the bracket, you just do it hand tight, the two 18mm bolts. The longer one is on top, and you should have some play after it's installed, and that makes it easier to get the brake pads on. With the bracket still loose, install the new brake pads. Apply brake lube to any metal portions of the pads where they'll contact, and then you want to insert the pad at a 45-ish degree angle, like such. Insert and then push the top portion toward the rotor, and it'll click in. Once the brake pad is correctly seated, if you push it in, you should see that there's a little bit of spring action to it. That's correct. And then go ahead and tighten those two 18mm bolts to 74 foot-pounds. The last step is to reinstall the caliper in the wheel. Slowly compress the caliper piston with a C-clamp. So right now it doesn't fit because the caliper piston is engaged. Use a clamp to push it back in slowly. Go ahead and put the caliper back on, and then there are two 13mm bolts, again held with a 15mm wrench, and they are tightened to 26 foot-pounds. Then you can go ahead and use your app to close the electronic brake.